already well-built, well-baked, that have worked together several years. We invest in companies on the P side, tickets for $10 million to $30 million. If a company can take that kind of money, they usually have proper institutions, proper training, proper teams. On the VC side, on the venture capital side, the teams are much younger. And so what that means is you have to spend quite a bit of time supporting them, sometimes helping to look for, let's say, additional people, additional members to help staff that team, to help build it out more, to help flesh it out more. And you might, for instance, you might have a very strong CEO, a very strong CFO. Are you looking at the other key positions, your head of ops, all of these sorts of things, and just working with them very, very closely, especially with the VC companies. We often find that you have to work with them very closely to build that second bench, to get in additional people, to train them, and then but also important to make sure that they that they match the culture of the firm that they're coming into, right?
Thank you, Trish. Jacob, I'll come to you next. So in thinking about the different aspects of what's important as a fund manager, one of the areas we hear a lot about these days is ESG. So if we perhaps deep dive, into that a bit, from an environmental and social management perspective, thinking about gender and climate as well, how does your institution think about risk management?
Yeah, thanks, Shirley. Risk management for us is critical and is embedded in our investment process. And the ESG bit is an aspect of the risk management framework. Our approach, essentially at GIP, is how do we balance or align the goal of making profits versus ensuring that the environment is not damaged. So you don't make profit at the expense of the environment. And environment here includes climate. So essentially we are looking at a triple bottom line framework: people, planet, and profit. And so to what extent are we able to achieve this? Given that BI is our parent, DFIs are very much strong on that. And so gender, environment, climate are top of mind issues. And this is reflected in our investment policy. Our goal, our aim, which has been defined and enshrined in our ESMS, Environment and Social Management Policy or System, addresses this. We aim to comply with national law and regulations. We do have what we call the exclusion list, which is adopted from BII. So there are certain sectors we cannot invest in. We also try to get our companies on the path of meeting the IFC performance standards. And so in evaluating transactions, we take into account all these protocols, and that allows us to assess the ESG risks. And any gaps identified reflect in the construction of what we call the corrective action plan, which then becomes the framework for monitoring the transactions. This is embedded in any investment agreement that we execute with the company, and the board assumes responsibility on a quarterly basis to ensure that this action plan is monitored. We do have a dedicated ESG resource, in addition to the fact that the investment team members are champions of ESG, but we have a dedicated resource that coordinates and leads the ESG risk assessment. And this is important because we have signed up as part of the shareholders agreement to meet certain minimum ESG standards. And so we make sure that we cross all the I's and cross all the T's and dot all the I's in achieving that. So ultimately, our risk management framework sort of reflects this whole ESG risks, the arising challenges and issues, and that informs the development of the correction action plan that we use in monitoring the investment.
Thanks, Jacob. I have a follow-up on that. I think we as GPs in particular understand how important all of these things are. But I wonder whether for SMEs in the room, people are hearing environmental and social governance and frameworks and checklists and commitments and thinking, I can never be ready or I can't do this. So perhaps from a practical perspective, how do you think about what you expect going into any specific company or SME, and perhaps how you're able to work with them to meet these standards from your own risk management perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any company, no matter how small, should be put off hearing ESG issues. Perhaps it's the terminology we're using, but I believe a lot of companies, as one of the basic requirements that they need to meet, particularly those in manufacturing, etc., is an EPA permit to operate, and that sort of is the basis on which we do the evaluation. So we're not looking to impose and import into the company onerous conditions, but just the very basic requirements, which should be in accordance with the national law. So what do you have to do to get your EPA permit? And we just have to ensure that this is formalized and continuously monitored. So I don't want anybody to think that if you hear an environmental and social management policy, it's something that is from the sky. It's something that we live with every day. When it comes to the social side of the S side of the ESG, you employ people, you need to ensure that you meet the very minimum labor regulations. Don't employ child labor, don't force people against their will to work. If people work outside of working hours, they need to be paid overtime. We ensure that this is properly codified and respected.
Okay, great, thank you.
And perhaps I may just want to highlight, you asked about gender. So we have taken that seriously. We have what we call the 2X challenge, which is nothing but just the promotion of inclusion of women. And we have it at various levels, at management level, leadership, and then also employees. And for the companies, the consumption, the products and services that they sort of produce or provide, a certain percentage should meet some threshold as it relates to women. So this is something we take seriously. But just to mention that even if you're not meeting it as a company, we can still invest because it's not 100%, it's just a percentage, I think up to about 30%. And then on the ESG side, the fact that there are gaps doesn't also disqualify you from accessing funding from us. We work with you to put in place the corrective action plan to address the gaps over a time period. It can span 6 months, it can span 12 months, 2 years, depending on the issues that are identified.
Okay, very helpful, thank you. Frank, I'll come back to you. Let's talk a little bit about, so from a legal perspective, how do you support fund managers in assessing portfolio companies to identify what these potential risks would be?
Right, thank you. So if we start from the assumption that PE firms or venture capitalists look for portfolio entities that have positive cash flow or have the ability to generate positive cash flow, then of course from our perspective, legal due diligence is also to help with identifying those areas which impair cash flow eventually or have the potential of wiping out capital. And so in terms of our legal due diligence, you typically look at the corporate governance side, which is sort of an area where a lot of the issues start from. Because if I think one of the panels, there was mention of key management, the people in charge of the business. So if you don't have good management practices or board practices, you typically have a situation where there's a lot of leakage. And then, of course, we also have to look at the legal and regulatory compliance. What's the compliance culture of the company? And what are the potential risks for you as an investor coming in? And then finally, contractual obligations, which will range from all the material agreements, finance agreements, to see where the liabilities are. And so if you look at it from that angle, that is a kind of support that the GPs need when they go into portfolio investments, in identifying, assessing, and then putting in place corrective, as Jacob indicated, a corrective action plan, or what some people say, the compliance uplift program. Because if you haven't done due diligence, how are you going to formulate something that works for a particular portfolio entity? You can't go into every portfolio entity with a blank check. You have to go in with a customized checklist for each company. And so the role of legal advisors for the purpose of legal due diligence is to do that. Now, you realize that legal due diligence is a painful exercise. And so in practice, some of the portfolio entities do not like the idea of lawyers coming in, going over the books and all of that. But it's always important to understand the why, because the why is a twofold issue. Why are the GPs doing this, and why are you supposed to collaborate with them? And so in terms of the why the GPs are doing that, obviously that is to understand the company better, and then as a value creation process, understand what policies and other things can be put in place in respect of the value creation process. And then in terms of the portfolio entity side, is also to give a full view of your business, so that there's a certain mutual cooperation between the two parties for the purpose of the deal making. So I think that's the issue from my side.
No, thanks. You're teeing up one of my next questions on value creation, but I'll actually come back to you for a minute on this. So as you think about some of the legal due diligences you've worked on, is there a particularly memorable case study, or perhaps a time when you've said to a fund manager, you know what, based on my assessment of risk here, don't go ahead, or you shouldn't be doing this? That would be helpful to hear.
Yeah, so I think it's always a red flag when you have a portfolio or a prospective portfolio entity a bit reluctant about providing information or documents. We've had instances where a portfolio entity has not provided information or documents. The GP has not made a deal, and fast forward, you hear issues about how you were right in not going into the deal. So it's always a red flag when the portfolio entity is not providing documents or information. There's also a red flag when there's a sort of reluctance with the due diligence process, which belies a certain compliance culture. Because when you go in and find that the basics, sometimes the portfolio entity, the people in charge actually do not know what to do in terms of compliance. That's a different issue. But in some instances, one of the panels, I think there was a discussion around where the key person or the sponsor, the attitude or the mental, the attitude is, I just want your money, but when you come in, I don't want you involved in the day-to-day business or in formulation of things that can help us get better. We just want the money. So it's always important to identify those issues early, so that you can decide whether to go in or not go in, and if you are going in, what are the measures you are putting in place to help with that.
No, very, very helpful. And I think, like you've said, when there's reluctance doing a due diligence of a paint manufacturer. And so they'd finished all the accounting and waiting for them to leave. He leaned against some of the paint cans and they all came tumbling down. These guys had shown them basically the full can somewhere in the middle and all the inventory was empty cans. So a cautionary tale in doing due diligence appropriately. Let me pick up on one of the things you said, developing a value creation plan. So as you think about your portfolio and your investments, what are aspects of value creation that you've structured to help mitigate risk or in response to some of the risks that you've identified in companies?
Yeah, thanks, Shelley. In undertaking our due diligence, we work to identify the key risks, in that we then try to see the opportunities, converting the mitigants into opportunities that will add value to the company. So as a policy, for every transaction, every deal, every investment that we make, we actually develop a value creation plan. And essentially, it is around identifying maybe 3 to 5, not more, strategic objectives, and they should be quantifiable. And then also identifying what the strategic initiatives are that will enable you achieve or realize these objectives. And then at the base of it, what the enablers are to help the initiatives achieve or realize the strategic objectives. So we do that for every investment. And it cuts across the entire spectrum, the functional areas of the company, whether it's strategic, commercial, operational, environmental, social, governance. It cuts across. Now, with respect to specific examples, if I take environment, energy is a critical component of a lot of the businesses we invest in. And so in one example, we developed and implemented, through the use of external consultants, an energy resource efficiency initiative, and that resulted in significant energy cost savings for the company. It dropped straight to the bottom line. We also had one, coincidentally, a paint company, that we needed to improve their effluent discharge because they were just discharging that into open drains. Working with external consultants, the whole new effluent system was kind of put in place. When it comes to a number of food businesses that we've invested in, we've worked with them to achieve industry certifications, quality certifications. And then even on the operational side, we've also sourced and utilized expert advisors. Sometimes we sort of embed them in the company, maybe over 6 months, over a year, to work with management to ensure that by the time that they are leaving, the knowledge would have been passed on. We sit on boards, and we also make sure we use independent board members who have relevant sector and industry knowledge to bring to bear. And then I talked about the corrective action plans. So once you've identified these gaps, developing the plan and implementing it, monitoring it over time, all adds significant value to it. Now, end of the day, whenever we exit an investment, we tend to construct what we call the value attribution analysis to see where the value we created is coming from. And it sort of runs through, we see improvements in revenue. So from when you went in and when you went out, what is the revenue growth and what were the drivers of that growth. We've seen margin growth, EBITDA growth, and then interestingly, we see some multiple arbitrage, increase in exit multiples. And in about 4 or 5 cases, we're able to exit these companies through trade sale to strategic investors. And they were willing and prepared to pay good multiples because of the strong value creation initiatives that were implemented. If you take the ESG side, they know there are not going to be any historical liabilities that would hit them going forward.
Thanks for that. No, it's always helpful to hear the value creation side, because I think we focus a lot on risk at entry, but really understanding how the right value creation plan can help not just mitigate some of those risks, but also increase exit value, because it's clear those have been mitigated. Trish, next is for you, and hopefully you knew that with Nigeria and Ghana being your primary markets, you weren't going to get away without this. Let's talk a bit about currency risk, and you touched on it. I think Naira is finally down from 1,900 to 1,000, so some of us can sleep with both eyes closed at night. CD, we're still waiting to see what this election year holds for us, but as people managing primarily dollar-denominated funds and then investing in underlying portfolio companies with local currency earnings most significantly, currency is a big question, both for LPs allocating to you, and then also for for portfolio companies wondering what sort of pressures come with taking FX investment. How have you thought about currency volatility and related risks? And what are some of the specific practical things that you've done to mitigate this risk and hopefully still have a chance of achieving decent returns and maybe even some carry?
Yeah, I mean, Shirley, you're absolutely right. Currency risk is something that keeps us very, very busy and has kept us very busy over the life of, in fact, all of our funds, right? Our Fund 2, we set up back in 2016 vintage, I believe it was, 2014 vintage. And around that time, Naira was what, 150, 156, right? Today, here we are at 1,000, so it's a massive shift. Ghana had our 2 years of very, very bumpy FX rates, and like you said, this year is also an election year, so we're looking to see how that goes. So absolutely, it's a big concern, and especially the fact that we're in 10-year funds. That's a lot of time for currencies to move, especially in our part of the world. The way we like to think about it is to try to approach it from perhaps two main angles. One, that is let me call it 3 main angles. One, looking at the types of companies that we invest in. 2, looking at how we structure those transactions. And 3, looking at it from a holistic portfolio point of view. Let's start from the micro and then go out. So looking at the sort of companies that we invest in, obviously, where it's a business that has the opportunity to get exposure to more than one country, that's good because you do get some sort of diversification. So where they're selling or they're operating in or they're exporting across the region or into regions where they're earning hard currency, that's a bonus. That's not always sufficient, obviously, because 1, not all of our businesses are exporting, and 2, a lot of our economies sort of tend to move in tandem, right? If things are going south in Ghana, we've seen that happen, right? And after Nigeria, not too long after. So they tend to move similarly times. The next step that we try to do then is look at how we're structuring those transactions, right? So we're able to get them to do business across the region, we're able to get them to add some sort of exports and hard currency earnings. That's great. The next thing we'll try to do is also look at how we structure the transaction. So we're typically invested for 5 years, plus or minus 1 year, but let's say 5 years on average. It helps if you're able to structure it so that you're getting your returns throughout the course, and everything is in fact ended at the end of year 6, where you've had 5-6 years of currency depreciation. And I say depreciation because inevitably it moves only in one direction. So you've had 5 years of currency depreciation to contend with. And we'll do this through, and sometimes it could be by putting in a mixture of different instruments. So yes, we're an equity firm, so we put in equity, but sometimes we'll put in a shareholder loan as well. Sometimes we'll put in pref shares that have a certain return, so that pays us back over time. Where the business can as well, we'll pay dividend out over time. So all of these things help to return capital over the life of the investment, as opposed to back-ending everything in year 5 or year 6. On a portfolio basis, what we try to do is, as I've said to you before, look across different geographies. Sometimes you can't port your company into different geographies, so you try to balance that out by investing in Nigeria, investing in Ghana, investing in Cote d'Ivoire, investing in Cairo, investing wherever else. So you get a little bit of that diversification across the entire portfolio. What we also try to do, what we did in our previous fund, we're looking at now as well, is NDFs, for instance, non-deliverable forwards, where against the value of the investment that you've made, you also have an NDF. So if things move in, against you during the course of that investment, at least part, if not all of your investment is covered, because you had the value of the NDFs that you're then able to retire. That'll hopefully be in the money to balance out some of that loss. What else have you done in terms of currency? I mean, we are always and continually sitting down and thinking of different ways, innovative ways to try to manage that. And I think something that's also really important to point out is that our sense isn't that this is just a problem for our partner companies. It's not a burden that we're trying to shift to them and saying, you figure it out because our LPs want their dollar returns, so it's all on you. We're actively working towards them, actively working with them to try to solve this issue for all of us.
Thanks, Trish. And I don't know who gave you my question list, but you actually touched on 2 of the last questions I was going to ask, so perhaps I'll skip over them on portfolio construction, on structuring. Let me give one last question to all 3 of you, and Frank, perhaps we can start from you. We talked about a lot of things today, identifying risk, but also a lot of ideas about how to mitigate, how to structure for risk, etc. If we pull this all up and I ask you, in giving investors confidence in both investing in funds and then fund investors in portfolio companies, what do you think is the most effective thing that fund managers can do to give confidence of how they'll manage risk?
I think that would be capacity building on the GP side, because for a GP to ensure that the processes at the portfolio side is working, they themselves must have a certain internal mechanism and understanding of the issues that matter to both the GP and the portfolio entity. So I would say that capacity building in terms of what compliance is about, what risk and risk identification, assessment and mitigation is about, so that on the fund side, there's always room for efficient and effective compliance and risk management. And then on the portfolio side, you have GP team members who understand the issues, the industry, and compliance and risk, so that the value creation that we talked about is enhanced.
Thanks, Frank. Trish? Same question. What's the most effective thing that GPs can do, or that you'd advise GPs thinking about risk management to give investor confidence?
I really think it's about staying dynamic and listening to your markets, looking at what's happening, comparing notes with other GPs, right? Figuring out what people are doing in similar markets, what other people in other markets have been through, what they're doing, and actually really tapping into your LPs. Because at the end of the day, we're all in similar markets. We're all going through it together. We're all trying to figure out what works. And it hurts us if any one GP doesn't do well, if any one GP fails. So it's in our very best interest to make sure that we are sharing ideas. What did you do? What worked for you? What did you learn? And obviously it helps our LPs as well to be able to share that. We've had the good fortune of having some of those interactions, and where will put us in touch with other GPs in other areas saying, hey, these guys went through a currency situation. This is kind of what they did. This is kind of how they managed that. But I think if there's one thing that I can say, because it's never one size fits all, the situation is dynamic, I would say just being very cognizant of the fact that the markets do move, the risks do change. Keep your finger on the pulse, stay transparent, talk to people, and just share ideas of what works, what isn't working, what you're seeing, and ask for help, really.
No, that's great. And also a quick plug for the afternoon session, so please don't leave after lunch. I think the closed door LP-only sessions, GP-only sessions, and then SME will be a good avenue to talk about some of the risks people are seeing and how different people have handled them. So Jacob, I'll come to you last. Same question. What, from your perspective, are some of the most effective strategies?
I think a couple of points. One is ensuring as a GP that you have the right and appropriate risk management protocols, which obviously reflect in a very strong and effective risk management policy. That helps you to identify and categorize risk appropriately at the company level, at the fund level, at the investing company level. And these are all very critical and important. I think the extent to which this is also embedded in the investment process is also key and critical. I can also talk about having the right resources in terms of team, and then developing the right risk culture, so you communicate that across. At GIP, our risk policy clearly defines, governance responsibilities around the risk, and it starts from the board all the way down. So it's very important to ensure that you have it, and then the constant review of these protocols is important to ensure that compliance is happening. So if you were to ask me, this is what I would add to that.
Thank you. That was my chief question, to also get a panel summary in from all three, so I won't repeat that. Thank you also for the summary. I think we can take one question probably, if there are any, before the last session. No? They've answered everything? Okay, I see a few. I think the lady had her hand up first, so perhaps the lady in the middle.
Hello, my name is Eleonore. I work with IMP, the Mastercard Foundation Africa Group Fund advisor. My question is about LP support. So what can we do from standing from an LP perspective to help support the GPs going forward with all the risk and all that you have to get done? Thank you.
Okay, so if I understand that correctly, it was about LP support and what LPs can do. So we don't have any LPs on the panel, but let me ask the GPs if they're happy to say perhaps how they felt supported by their LPs.
Okay, let me take that. I think when LPs are conducting their due diligence, risk management is one area that they look out for. And as I mentioned, they look at the protocols that you have in place. They look at the investment process that is scrutinized. And you have to answer a lot of questions around that. They test the training protocols that you have in place. Specifically at GIP, we have benefited a lot from BIL and we still benefit from it. We actually have access to some of the functional support teams in BIL, business integrity, ENS. We do have access to that and we tap into it. And they look at the policies that we've put in place throughout the organization, and this is properly evaluated. If you don't have it, you can agree what they call a policy action roadmap that defines policies that you need to have in place, the timelines within which you should have in place, etc., etc. And then also they look at the governance structures that you've put in place. So in carrying out their due diligence, I see LPs providing that support. Some even go to the extent of providing some technical assistance, and again, not all GPs do, which then allows, not LPs do, which then allows GPs to have their team members trained. So training is also an important part of support that they provide. I don't know if it's the same for you, Trish.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been very, very fortunate with the sort of LPs that we've had, and they've helped us in many, many ways, from helping the GP directly all the way right through to helping our partner companies. I can give you examples. You know, during COVID, for instance, a number of them opened up technical assistance programs where our partner companies were able to apply and get funding. That helped immeasurably in terms of not having to turn the lights off, not having to turn people home, send people home. So I mean, it really speaks to, you know, when they're talking to you about the importance of impact and ESG and all of these things, the fact that they put their money where their mouth is and saying, hey, if you're having a hard time, we will help you through this period. We've also had LPs that have helped us with best practice. So for instance, like I said before, you know, sometimes we might be facing a certain situation with a new company that we've invested in. They'll let us know, hey, we have a GP that did something similar in another region. We've actually had instances where they've brokered meetings, we've flown over the management team of our partner companies to see how things are done in another region. We brought on people from those boards so that there's actual skills transfer, so that's real tangible value that they're adding. We've had LPs who have sat with us and, you know, told us how to, there's certain industries that we're looking at, maybe we aren't as familiar, but again, they have expertise, you know, bringing in technical experts, operators who can just help us get very smart on that very quickly. And again, those at the, you know, right through to the partner company level. At the GP level, again, you know, they've been very good about helping us to improve, asking us the tough questions, helping us be introspective about how we can do things better, and giving us real-time feedback. And it could be about things like, you know, like you're saying, your systems, your processes, how to improve that, how to improve your deal screening process, how to improve your any number of things. And I think that's the real value of the LP, similar to how, you know, GPs aren't looking to just invest in partner companies and go to bed for 5 years and hope things turn out well. It's a partnership. You're holding their hand, you're holding yours, and you're helping them navigate. It's very much a similar thing when you get a good relationship with an LP, where they can tell you, this is what people are doing, this is how to do better, this is how to be better. It's not just money they're bringing in and asking you to report every quarter. They're actively in it with you, and when things get tough, they're in the fire with you.
Thank you. There were a few more hands, but I'm sure the panelists will indulge you offline or maybe over lunch. So thank you very much, Jacob, Trish, and Frank.
Thank you.
So putting my MC hat back on, I will take you straight into the last session between us and lunch. And I have the pleasure and privilege of introducing Anam Abodre. Nanama is the founder and managing partner of Endowona, a preeminent Ghanaian law firm. And both Endowona and Nanama herself are highly ranked globally across multiple practice areas. Nanama will be hosting a fireside chat with the SEC. So please give her a round of applause as she comes to take us into this next session.
Good afternoon, everybody. I know that everybody is hungry and you are ready to go to lunch, but I promise you we have two amazing people from the Securities and Exchange Commission, and it's going to be a lively and short session. So without further ado, I'd like to call to the stage Mr. Francis Boedu, who is the head of broker-dealers and advisors at the SEC. I would also like to call Mrs. Rosalind Darkwa, who is the head of funds management at the Securities and Exchange Commission. Guys, I know you're hungry, but I think you can do better than that. Okay, so while we're waiting for Rosalind to get mic'd up, in this fireside chat, we're going to delve into how the SEC sees the market evolution, collaboration with the PE fund managers, and strategies for strengthening compliance and education within the industry.
Good afternoon to you all. The Commission, when it comes to education, we are doing a lot. I think with the current Director General, when he assumed office, what he has introduced is time with the Commission. And I believe some of you may have witnessed some of the programs which has taken the Commission to other regions like Western region, Northern region, and Ashanti region. So the Commission is doing it to educate people to following the revocation of some of the farm managers' license, it became imperative that the Commission undertake this exercise to let public knows what the investments is about. It's different from going to bank to do savings where you put your money there and whenever you go there, you take your money. But investment is quite different. It's downturn. So the Commission has taken a number of initiatives to do this kind of public education, to let the general public know what it takes when you want to do investment in the capital market space.
Okay. Thanks, Francis. Okay, great. So, Just a second. So Francis, I'd like to start with you. How, in your opinion, is the PE-VC sector doing?
PE and VC are not exceptional from this global challenge. So from where we sit and the returns that we receive from the market, it is clear that, the industry has taken a nosedive. But the good thing is that we see the light at the end of the tunnel. But if you're asking me, in the last 3 years, the performance of the industry is not all that encouraging. Simply because some of the fund managers, because of these factors that I've mentioned, find it extremely difficult to raise funds. And even we have had an instance whereby about 2 advisors have surrendered their license to the commission because they were not able to raise funds after the funds that they were managing, came to an end because of these factors and other factors that has affected, the ability to raise funds. So, but as I've already indicated, that's not the end. I see the future to be bright. So that is how it is now.
Thank you, Francis. So, Rosalind, I'd like to turn to you. Francis says it's okay. Francis says that it's difficult times now, but the future is bright. So, Rosalind, what do you see as the significant opportunities and the challenges facing the GPs? Francis touched on some, but what do you see?
Thank you, Amma. So just following from the intro given by Francis, my colleagues, there is some light at the end of the tunnel, at least for this industry or for this sector. So even though generally we see a downturn, we see generally things happening within the asset management space. One thing is that the SEC in its 10-year market plan identified that alternative assets should be given some more prominence, some more boost, some more encouragement. And so the SEC's 10-year plan decided to actually put a program in place or a working group in place to develop and see how best we can improve upon some investments in this sector. We have pension assets also making provisions in the investment guidelines of the NPRA to accommodate alternative assets. In the past, we were just doing the orthodox or the traditional ones, but there is now some opportunity in this area where pension assets are coming into the space. There are quite a number of institutional investors who are looking to make some strides or looking for opportunities to invest and are looking into this space. So there is some opportunity. We just are looking to get it right, to look for which is the right investment, which is the right place to go into. And so the SEC came out with its private fund guidelines sometime in 2018, and that is what is guiding, or that is what we are using in this space. The market is open, and what we are looking is to encourage or motivate investors. The SEC is also willing to create that enabling environment to support the growth in this space. So there is opportunity, and we were looking to partner with operators in this space to see growth and development in the sector. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I'm happy that you touched on the things that SEC is doing. If I could just follow up with you on that. What are some of the things that SEC is doing, collaborating with our regulators? You mentioned the NPRA. And what are you doing behind the scenes for institutional investors in Ghana to this asset class?
So thank you, Amma. So what we are looking is to, well, like I said, to turn some more attention into this area. In the past, probably we haven't. And so we have had our eyes on the traditional or the orthodox investments. And so to turn some attention into this area. We are looking to even collaborate with the GVCA itself. And we've had several engagements with the GVCA. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we are here. Anytime you invite us, we stop whatever we are doing, and then we are here. We have a listening ear to the operators within this asset class. I think the SEC is passionate about trying to get him to move it forward. I know there are issues even at the ORC level to get registrations done, and yes, so in terms of collaboration, we have made some engagements. We are looking to hold your hand. We are looking to partner with you just to get things moving in that regard. I know that yes, sometimes it is tough and sometimes it is difficult. I know, for example, even with the Limited Partnership Act, it's an area which could serve as a boost to this industry or to this sector, and we are working with the GVCA in this regard, just to get it off the table. It doesn't lie entirely within our hands or within our purview, but in terms of support, we are providing what it takes to be able to do it. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. I, for one, am very excited to hear that we're making some progress on the Limited Partnership Act. I know exactly where we are. Good to know. Francis, I'd like to come back to you now as we are talking about regulation and SEC's efforts, the efforts that you're making to boost and promote private equity and venture capital as an asset class. I'm going to ask you a bit of a provocative question. I said I'm going to ask you a bit of a provocative question. What would you say to someone who says is too high and too costly? We have two levels of licensing, both at the fund manager level and at the fund level, and there's all sorts of reporting and things being done. So what would you say to somebody who says that that's too much, and how are you thinking about these issues?
Nana, thank you. I think that for this market to develop or progress, there's one thing I always tell people that I think it's not working. This market thrives on confidence. Without confidence, the market players have no business to do. The regulator also has no business to do. So it is the responsibility of the regulator to ensure that the confidence level in the market, if we cannot increase it, at least we sustain it where it is now. So some of the measures that the Commission put in place is not the intention to burden the operators, but rather to promote the confidence and the interest of the existing investors and also the prospective investors. Having said that, the Commission has also taken initiative last year to commission a consultant to review the Enabling Act, which is the Securities Industry Act 2016 at 929. We have had a number of concerns from the market. Among them is the annual renewal of license, and also if investment advisor, you need to have a minimum capital of 1 million Ghana cedis or to present 4 reps to the Commission before you can get a license to operate. All these concerns are going to be dealt with the ongoing overhaul of the Commission's Act. So even though some of the compliance issues are necessary, the Commission has also, taken on board some of the major concerns that have come from the market. So in the overhaul of the Act, I believe that some of these things will be reduced, or some of them will be, taken out for a minimum. But the point I want to make here is that it is not the intention of the Commission to burden the market, rather to promote the confidence in the market so that we all get business to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Francis. I think that's music to at least some people's ears. Can I ask what structures are in place for industry players to provide, more feedback, and are there going to be stakeholder engagements or?
Oh yes, the avenues are so many. One, you can come together as a group and submit a paper to, Director General. Or you can even walk to our office and have a chat with maybe the head of department that, your lances fall under. And you can also reach us on our toll-free number, or you can call any of our lines if you have any concern. The current Director General is operating in open door policy. So if you have any concern or any suggestion, we are ready to take on board, because we are working with you to develop the market. And like Roslyn said, we are listening regulator. We don't want to hide somewhere, and when something goes wrong, then we quit. We want to work with you so that we all grow the market together.
Music to our ears. What role do you see impact investors playing in the sector, and do you have any initiatives planned to encourage and support impact investors?
Thank you. So for impact investors, I think that it's one of the, so let me just say, it's one of the ideals or the current issues being promoted by the ISCO, the International Organization of Securities Commissioners. And Ghana is now a full signatory of ISCO. And so I'll say that with the impact investing, sustainable investing, it is one of the tenets that the SEC Ghana is fully subscribed to. And so what we are looking to do, like Mr. Boydu said, in the overhaul of the regulatory framework, the Securities Industry Act, these are all areas that are being factored into it. A consultant has been engaged. We've had several conversations, discussions. The process has already started. And so the Securities and Exchange Commission Ghana is very much interested in that. In terms of what role it will play within our system or within our market, I think that it is one of the global concerns. Ghana, we are not left out. And in terms of promoting development and sustainability within our space, I think it's something that we would adhere and support fully. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Follow-up on that. One of the things that we often see presenting a significant challenge to impact investors and just GPs generally is the GIPC Act's minimum capital requirements. Can you tell us a little bit about, the conversation? There's a new GIPC Act that is in the offing. So is there anything you can share on that?
So from the SEC angle, we are yet to engage with the GIP. We are very much aware of it, but it's actually on our table at the moment. So no policy decisions or no statements have been made. Currently looking at to see how we can engage and how we can also support the industry in that act. Yes.
Thank you very much. Francis, I'd like to come to you. How do you taxes and you go out to have a the list of taxes at the end of the receipt is eye-watering. So Yes, how do you see the impact of the current expansive tax regime on the industry? And how are you engaging? Obviously, this is not within your purview, but how are you engaging with Ministry of Finance or GRA to see how we can ameliorate the situation for GPs and LPs?
I think some of the taxes that we have in this country, one way or the other, also promote, capital transfer. For instance, those that are coming from outside. If Ghana has a double tax treaty with those countries, it will kneel into the benefit of our market. And the capital gains tax that also is in the system is also something that also will help investors to put their money in. But as for what the Commission would do to maybe help the Ministry of Finance take some of these things out, the Commission has had an engagement with the Ministry of Finance in the time past. And I don't think we have ended everything. There's still room for improvement. So we think that, we can go back to the ministry when things are not going well and ask for more, like Oliver Twist, so that things becomes much better. But I don't think all of them are nuisance. Some of them rather inure to our benefit. So we can take advantage of those ones and work with, and the rest that we think are, bringing our work down, we can also negotiate with the Ministry of Finance and GRA and see where we can get some kind of reduction.
Thank you so much. I can hear around the room that everybody is dying to go to lunch. So I will ask whether there are if there's anybody with a burning question for the SEC. No, they're all hungry. Okay. So on that note, I'm going to ask you each the same last question. What is the one thing you want everybody from this conversation?
Thank you, Alma. I think we touched on it briefly, but working as a regulator, anytime I see a market operator, and it's not includes operators or persons within this space, to the effect that our requirements are onerous. And so it's difficult to get or achieve even growth or development within this space. What are we doing about it? So like mentioned already, we are looking at the acts over the regulatory act. It's being overhauled at the moment. But I'd like to say that, you see, even though this is for private, it's a private fund and it's for qualified investors, at the same time, investors, the institutional investors, are also looking for some form of comfort. And so the questions are, how are you protecting the investors? How are you ensuring transparency? How do we ensure that operators within this space live up to what the expectation is? What is the SEC doing about it? Some investors will just say, we are waiting for you to get licensed, otherwise we'll not invest in this scheme. And so they are waiting for it to get it. What is it about the SEC license that gives comfort to the investors? That's a question or an area we should be looking at. And so the requirements of, let's say, this number of directors, one has to be independent, this number of reps, you have to make sure that each of them is qualified in this area. The directors, the kind of background checks that are done on them, the fit and proper assessment, it is all for the good of the market, for the good of the sector. Now we said that there are lots of eyes or there's lots of interest being shown in this area. What has already been licensed, we cannot afford to fail. So we are looking to see how it pans out, and it will serve as a step. It will serve as a motivation towards growing this space or this sector. And so if we ask for director's background, integrity, go and do checks, character references, please, it is for the good of the market. You want the investor to be sure that you as an operator, as an FM, as an investment advisor licensed by the SEC is up to the task. And so that's why we do that, just so that you can keep your job. The investor too can keep his money, and we can also sleep. The Director General will sleep soundly. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Rosalind. When you were saying you were a listening regulator a bit better, but we hear you. We hear you.
And I want to say that for the last 6 or 7 years, the Commission has done a lot geared towards the promotion of this segment. I don't know whether it is by coincidence or design. The private funds guidelines was issued on 18th April 2018. Today has exactly 6 years. I don't know whether you celebrate it. And from then on, a number of initiatives have been taken just to promote the industry. All that I say is that the Commission has done a lot. It is up to the players made by the rules of the game to sustain the effort or the interest that the Commission has generated so that we all get a vibrant market to operate. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think we can all agree that we want a vibrant market, we want a growing market. We are grateful for the SEC's oversight, and very, very happy to hear that you're a listening regulator, and we will continue the conversation. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Nanahama, and thank you for the panelists. Well done. I do not want to stop you any longer from lunch. We're going to do this very quickly because the hotel called to say, where are the guests? The food is ready. I would like first to let you know that, you know, when the Lord blesses you, He blesses abundantly, and we have been blessed with abundance of blessings. So everyone who is a sponsor, at least from your institution, please stand up, because we have a gift to say thank you very much. When it flows or when it rains or showers, and it's been showered in GVCA. And so everyone who you know is a sponsor, just one rep, please stand up where you are so my ushers can quickly come and give a gift to you. Please stand up. So the sponsors are VCTF, Development Bank of Ghana, 3i Africa Summit. One rep, thank you. Trust Fund, okay, thank you. We have BII there. I see you, Adebayo, stand up. Oasis, Injaro, Meripa, Deloitte, EY, KPMG, PwC, MasterCard Foundation, Africa Growth Fund, Verod, Veritas, Pangaea, IIGH, Nord Fund, Ashfield Investment, AB and David, FinCab, Uhuru, Nest, ENS Africa, City FM and City TV, TV3 and 3FM. We also have a sponsor. The sponsor who is blessing us is called Annabelle. They're also sponsoring the cocktail session, which will happen at the end of the conference. So please stay over, have some drinks, and each sponsor is getting a bottle to take home with them to say thank you very much for thinking of us and for sponsoring the GVCA conference. As Shirley, our host, comes up to close you and get ready,
We want to just thank you for being patient. There's lots of food ready for you. And Shirley will remind you that after lunch, we're not going to be in these rooms, meaning we're going to have breakout sessions or closed door sessions. So when you are going to lunch, please carry all your belongings with you. We have some sponsors here, the drinks. Where's Mildred? Okay. BII is here, thank you. So please carry all your bags and belongings with you, okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good afternoon for the last time. And I'll start with a big round of applause to all of you. So a big round of applause to everyone. It's very, very exciting. And I think I speak on behalf of GVCA in saying thank you. Really exciting to see at the end of this first session still a very full room. Hopefully that says something about how engaging the content was, and maybe Nelson keeping you going with some of his jokes, but thank you very much. This is not the end of the conference, but the end of the first part. So we're heading out into lunch. If you remember the entrance you came into the hotel through, lunch is out in the courtyard. And so we'll head into lunch. We'll try to catch up a bit of a lunch. So instead of an hour, can we try to finish lunch by 2:10, please? And then after lunch, we'll head into 3 separate sessions. This room will be divided into 2. One room for SMEs, which will be labeled. One room for the GP closed door session, which will be labeled as well. And then for LPs, after lunch, if you walk to the reception area, there'll be pull-up banners leading to the Pearl room of the reception. And the LP closed door session will be in the Pearl room. So as Hannah said, please don't leave anything behind because we're not coming back here. And because we won't have another joint session, we'll use this opportunity again to say thank you very much for your support and sponsorship, for your attendance, for your engaging participation, and we hope to see you all again next year. Sorry, last announcement. The deal room is still going. If you remember, it's behind us in, I can't remember, in Palm Jeremiah. So for pre-registered SMEs and investors, you can go behind us as well after lunch to continue participating in the deal room. So thank you everyone and have a good afternoon.
Ghana Venture Capital and Private Equity Association Conference 2024. This year's theme is the Capital Convergence, Bridging Traditional and New Financial Landscapes, happening on the 18th of April 2024 at the Kempinski Hotel. Get ready for another impactful experience with industry leaders, innovators, and visionaries from around the globe. Gain valuable insights, forge meaningful connections, and ignite endless possibilities for growth and collaboration. Together, we'll push the boundaries of what's possible, driving progress and shaping the future of our industries. Don't miss out on this chance to be part of something extraordinary. This edition is proudly sponsored by